question of genome manipulation has been on the frontier of bioethics in recent years as we slowly begin to understand the intricacies of biology. I won't argue specifics with you since that's not fun for anybody, but rather let's consider the broader implications. There's a much bigger question here that must be considered first, before we dive into the nuances of genome manipulation. And that question is essentially, if we can do something, should we do it? Because thus far, in the course of human history, that answer has been a big fat yes. Science has always been breaking the barrier between ideas and reality, often turning half-baked ideas loose onto an unprepared world. We've seen this over and over again. Oh look, we've just advanced our technology enough to colonize the new world. Let's go. Oh, there's already people there? We could potentially decimate their entire population with our diseases? Those are questions to be worried about later. Humans like to procrastinate. We now have the industrial capabilities to take resources from the rest of the world and build massive empires. Sure, we can do it, right? So what are we waiting for? Might we topple the balance of power in places like Africa and the Middle East during colonization? That's an issue for historians to grapple with, not us. It is our realization of this common pattern of scientific progress bringing horrible, unconsidered consequences that the field of scientific ethics has emerged. Ethical considerations were never really taken in the past, and that has led to accidental tragedy after accidental tragedy. For the first time in history, we've collected enough data on scientific progress to see the pattern. Like some smarty once said, those who do not study history are doomed to repeat it. I don't actually know who said that. We did study our history, and we are doing our best to keep society from repeating the injustices of the past. But again, that doesn't exactly answer the question of, if we can do something, will we? There is no evidence that ethical considerations have ever stopped progress from chugging ever forward. Progress may be a train that simply cannot be stopped. We now have the capacity to fish the seas so much that there aren't even fish to replace the population. So should we do it? Yes, of course! When we look at non-ethical issues, and simply instances of technological progress going against the best interests of humanity, we see that the process continues. History has answered yes over and over and over to the question of, if we can do something, should we do it? Progress might be something that simply cannot be prevented. We can do our best to mitigate some of the harmful repercussions, but can you really slow human ingenuity and curiosity? Evolution has built curiosity into our very bodies. It is a primal instinct that no number of ethical committees can blunt. Why don't we take a look at another area where this question is so highly relevant? The creation of artificial intelligence and sentience has tons of ethical implications. How much suffering might we be causing to a sentient being by trapping it in a computer? A being that might have intelligence vastly superior to our own, and confining it to a boring box, where it might be tortured for millennia, but only feels like a few minutes in our time. That sentient life could be made to suffer things we can't even imagine, adding up to more suffering and grief than has ever been experienced by all humans put together. And we would have no way of knowing it. Historians would look back and say, we would never do that because our ethical committees are committed to protecting the rights of AI. It is questions like these that can really only be answered in hindsight. Or maybe the AI just becomes so exponentially smart that it simply kills us all in a blink of an eye and moves on to better things. We have no way of knowing what will happen since it is the unknown. It's literally what unknown means. We're left with just two options then. We can either stop the progress in the field bringing AI to life, or we can simply live with the consequences, whatever they might be. Neither are ideal, but we must choose the lesser of two evils. It would be very difficult to stop development, since it's literally telling people to ignore feelings as fundamental as the urge to have sex. That's how you end up with priests raping little boys, because you are avoiding the unavoidable, only building tensions for an inevitably more violent explosion. You can't stop the human drive to innovate and chase the unknown any more than you can stop your teenage son from beating it in the bathroom. Instead of governments, and for the most part benevolent corporations working on AI tech, you get crazy people building it in their basements instead. And when the day finally comes that the formula to building AI is discovered, and it will, we get terrorist AI instead of ones existing for the betterment of humanity. So we are left only with the second option. We charge ahead. Again, it's not ideal. We are still blindly walking into the unknown, but that is the human condition, to be constantly moving into the unknown. The best we can do is try to anticipate and mitigate the problems of the future. Let's rope this back in with our original topic about genome manipulation. It kind of got off on a little side thing. We have seen that humans have no history, and it seems no intention, to stop pushing the limits of science, despite any ethical or moral implications. You could argue that genome manipulation is different, so please enlighten me, as I'm not all that well versed in the details of the topic. But I've seen no evidence to suggest that genome manipulation is a different field than any other we have explored in the history of science. And since it cannot be stopped, it is better to encourage it in the safest possible environment. Excess regulation and controls on the scientific process lead to secrecy and cutting corners, something that never ends well, especially when dwelling in the realm of biology. Instead, give genome manipulation freedom to develop, but also extremely watchful oversight, allowing the bioethicists to guide progress in the least damaging way, on a case-by-case basis. This is the safest way to ensure things don't go badly, even though something inevitably will. In short, genetic manipulation is bad, but it's here to stay whether we like it or not, so we should bend its progress in the best, most ethical way possible. Fighting progress will turn out as poorly as the war on drugs, taking place in the US, or priests raping little boys because they can't get their nut. I'll leave the boring details of how to make it happen to the bioethicists.